You think you know World War II history? Think again. We're going beyond the documentaries and textbooks to uncover the truly bizarre, cutting-edge winter gear that kept soldiers alive in the face of brutal cold. Imagine self-heating food and footwear so strange it defies explanation. Forgotten innovations that changed the game of survival. You won't believe what they came up with. December 1944, the Ardennes forest, temperature -15°C. American GIs huddled in foxholes during what would become known as the Battle of the Bulge faced an enemy more merciless than German artillery, the cold itself. Trench foot incapacitated thousands. Frostbite claimed fingers, toes, entire limbs. Men froze to death in their sleeping positions, rifles still gripped in stiffened hands. The standard issue wool overcoat and leather boots that worked adequately in temperate climates became death sentences in genuine winter warfare. The military brass learned a brutal lesson. You can have the best tanks, the most ammunition, the finest tactical planning, but if your soldiers can't survive the environment, you lose. What followed was a desperate race to innovate, producing some of the strangest, most ingenious cold-weather equipment ever devised, gear that never made it into the history books but saved countless lives. Start with feet. Traditional military boots were leather, waterproof when new, breathable, durable. In extreme cold, they became rigid ice traps. Moisture from sweat couldn't escape. Feet stayed wet. Wet feet in freezing temperatures meant frostbite, then gangrene, then amputation. The standard solution, extra socks, made boots tighter, restricting circulation, making the problem worse. Enter the vapor barrier boot. American engineers created a rubber inner bootie that sealed completely around the foot, trapping body heat, but also trapping moisture. The theory was, honestly, counterintuitive. Keep the foot wet, but warm rather than dry but frozen. Soldiers hated them, actually. After hours of wear, feet became wrinkled and macerated like they'd been soaking in a bathtub. But, they worked. Frostbite rates dropped dramatically wherever vapor barrier boots were issued. The Soviets took a different approach with the WWII, felt boots made from compressed wool that provided insulation even when wet. German forces, after suffering catastrophic winter casualties in the Soviet Union during 1941–42, reverse-engineered captured WWII and distributed them to troops on the Eastern Front. Some designs incorporated aluminum foil layers, early reflective insulation, sandwiched between felt layers to prevent heat loss through radiation. The most bizarre footwear innovation came from Finland. The Finnish military developed sissi boots, oversized felt boots worn over regular combat boots, creating an air gap that provided additional insulation. They looked absurd, like wearing sleeping bags on your feet, but Finnish troops operating in temperatures below -40°C maintained combat effectiveness, while better-equipped German allies suffered mass casualties from cold exposure. Food presented its own challenge. Standard sea rations froze solid in winter conditions. Soldiers tried carrying cans inside their uniforms to prevent freezing, which, honestly, was uncomfortable and still didn't work reliably. The solution was the self-heating can, a technology that sounds modern, but surprisingly existed in crude form during World War II. British forces received self-heating soup cans using an exothermic chemical reaction. A soldier would puncture a seal inside the can, mixing quicklime with water. The reaction generated enough heat to warm the soup to drinking temperature within minutes. The system was unreliable, sometimes too hot, sometimes barely warm, occasionally generating toxic fumes if the seal broke improperly. But, on a frozen battlefield where fires attracted enemy attention and fuel was scarce, having soup that heated itself felt like magic. American forces experimented with similar technology using magnesium and iron oxide reactions, though concerns about fire hazards limited deployment. More commonly issued were heat tablets, compressed chemical fuel that burned slowly and produced intense heat without flame or smoke. Soldiers could heat rations, warm their hands, or dry wet socks. Each tablet burned for about 15 minutes, and experienced troops learned to use them strategically, rationing warmth across long frozen nights. Personal heating devices pushed into territory that seems almost science fiction for the 1940s. The German military issued Körperwärmer, body warmers, using catalytic oxidation of lighter fluid to generate heat. A soldier would fill a small metal container with lighter fluid, light a catalyst, then seal the unit. It would produce gentle warmth for up to 12 hours, carried inside clothing against the body. The devices were expensive, prone to leaking, and occasionally caused burns, but desperate soldiers on the Eastern Front considered them invaluable. American forces received hand warmers using iron oxidation, essentially controlled rust. Mix iron powder with salt and water in a small pouch, and the oxidation reaction generates heat for several hours. Soldiers called them hot rocks and would stuff them into gloves and boots before patrols. The technology was simple enough that troops in the field could manufacture their own using salvaged materials. Camouflage in winter environments required complete rethinking of standard uniforms. White uniforms were obvious, but early versions were simply white cotton smocks worn over regular uniforms, bulky, restrictive, and poor camouflage once they got dirty. The Soviets developed reversible suits, white on one side, standard camouflage on the other, that could adapt to changing conditions. American paratroopers received white jumpsuits treated with special compounds that maintained their brightness even after exposure to smoke and dirt. The Germans created Schneetarn patterns, disruptive camouflage specifically designed for partial snow cover, using white splotches on grey backgrounds. This actually worked better than solid white when terrain had mixed snow and exposed ground. Some units even received experimental photoluminescent paint that reflected moonlight in specific wavelengths, making soldiers nearly invisible during night operations in snow. Shelter technology advanced beyond tents to specialized systems. Norwegian troops used lavu, traditional Sami tent designs adapted for military use, with central heating stoves and snow skirts that could be buried for insulation. The design was so effective that several armies copied it. American mountain troops received Arctic tents with double-wall construction and ventilation systems designed to prevent carbon monoxide buildup from heating stoves while maintaining internal warmth. Perhaps the strangest shelter innovation was the snow bivouac kit, a collapsible aluminum frame with a tarp that could be assembled in minutes to create an emergency snow cave. A soldier caught in a blizzard could deploy the frame, pile snow over it, and have an insulated shelter warm enough to prevent hypothermia. The military issued thousands of them. Records suggest they saved hundreds of lives, though most soldiers never needed to use them. Tools for snow operations included collapsible avalanche probes specialized shovels with serrated edges for cutting snow blocks, and emergency kits containing magnesium fire starters, reflective blankets and concentrated fuel bars. Some units received emergency warming bags, essentially large-scale versions of modern space blankets using metallized fabric to reflect body heat. Soldiers called them body bags, which was, well, darkly appropriate, given that they often represented the last line of defense against freezing to death. The human cost of developing this equipment was, honestly, staggering. Every innovation came after soldiers died from exposure. Every improvement represented lessons learned through suffering. The vapor barrier boot existed because thousands of men lost toes to frostbite. Self-heating rations were developed after soldiers died of hypothermia because they couldn't safely build fires. The specialized gear that seems routine now was born from desperation and really purchased with lives. Modern cold-weather equipment, from Gore-Tex to chemical warmers to specialized mountaineering boots, traces directly to World War II innovations. The vapor barrier principle underlies modern waterproof breathable fabrics. Self-heating food technology evolved into MRE heaters. The aluminum foil insulation in vapor barrier boots became the basis for emergency blankets and modern insulation systems. But the real legacy is the recognition that environmental challenges require dedicated technological solutions. You can't just issue warmer clothes and expect soldiers to survive extreme conditions. You need systematic innovation, specialized footwear, portable heating, appropriate camouflage, emergency shelter systems. The military establishments that learned this lesson maintained combat effectiveness in extreme environments. Those that didn't suffered, well, catastrophic casualties. If this journey into forgotten survival technology revealed how desperation drives innovation and how much we owe to those who suffered while we learned, subscribe to Through Time. Share this with someone who needs to understand that progress isn't just about weapons and tactics. Sometimes it's about keeping people alive long enough to fight. The gear was strange, often crude, sometimes dangerous, but it worked, and that made all the difference.